This is the new Weight Watchers, built for real life and real results, no matter what mode you're in. Maddie went all in for her big day and lost 33 pounds. Emily lost 85 pounds and hit her goal while still living her life.
Weight Watchers gave me the tools and I feel amazing.
Join the millions of members and lose weight with the #1 doctor-recommended weight loss program.
I'm able to live my life and still hit my goals.
Lose more at WeightWatchers.com.
What is going on, everybody? It's Jason Justin. Today we're joined by Melissa. Melissa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
You have lived a lot of life. We got a small synopsis from the publicist, and you've had a lot happen in your lifetime, and it's fascinating because you're pretty young still, and you had a Dairy Queen at 17 years old. It's the whole thing is fascinating to me. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you from?
So I was born in Venezuela. Both my parents are from Spain. They moved to Venezuela when it was a promised land. And me and my siblings, we were all born there.
That's awesome.
Yes. So what was it like growing up there?
Very different than growing up in the U.S. for the most part. Venezuela is a very dangerous country. It was back then. It is even worse now. So to describe it briefly, I was never allowed to walk my dog on the streets. I was never able to ride my bicycle on the streets. Robbers came into our house several times. One of the times my father chased him out of the house with his gun, and we got the bullet notched on the walls of the house. This is a constant reminder. I used to walk the 5 minutes to school when I was a teenager in high school with a big electric taser in my skirt pocket. So it was definitely a very scary place to be honest.
Yeah, well, I read here that it says that you killed somebody at 15 and your father passed away at 17. What is it like what is the decision to finally put all this stuff in a book and sit down and write it now?
Well, it wasn't planned. So the big message of my book is that the brain hides traumatic memories from childhood. I remember my father's murder when I was 16. It really was a difficult episode for me as a teen to lose my father, who at that time was basically my only friend and my best friend and the center of my universe and the only person that mattered in my life and the person I was with at all times. So I left Venezuela right after his murder when I finished high school a little earlier at 16, and I moved to the U.S. with 2 suitcases and my dog. And I tried to have a normal life. I actually was, I think, very good at it, pretending to be okay, competent person, business oriented, married the tall, dark and handsome guy, had made the money, traveled the world. But there was always something missing. People around me knew it. My family felt it. I felt it. We were investing in mental health. So there were so many things that once you learn about mental health, they're so obvious that there was something in my past to look at. But when you don't know what you're looking for, you just don't know. So I didn't plan ever on writing a book or, the story of my life. It just so happened that I got to a point when I was 36 years old where my life was really spiraling down out of control. And I reached a point of desperation. And I went to a center in Costa Rica called Rhythmia that serves ayahuasca, which is a psychedelic. And then my world really, really unraveled because I was not expecting what happened, which often happens with psychedelics. That's why I'm always very, adamant at telling people, hey, make sure that your life is at the right time for you to go and take psychedelics because they can be life-changing. So I started to recover memories of trauma from my childhood that I didn't have a conscious recollection of, which explain a lot of the really difficult consequences that I had to deal for most of my life.
So when you were recalling those memories, did you have to kind of go verify with other family members or friends maybe of hey, did this really happen? I remember it. I imagine if you're just recovering memories, it's kind of hard to know, is my brain playing a trick on me or not?
Oh, absolutely. So, of course, I when the memories first started to come up, I went through the 5 stages of grief in like an instant, right? Everything in psychedelics is accelerated. So I went like denial and anger and depression and bargaining and finally acceptance. But the way that I can explain it is every cell in my body knew the truth. Every cell in my body remembered. My brain was taking a little bit to catch up, but imagine like a full body aha moment, even though it was something that it was never in my conscious awareness. I could have never, ever told anybody that I went through this, which happened to me. But as soon as the memories started to connect, then my entire body remembered. And then what's interesting is, with these hidden memories of trauma, there is usually telltales throughout your life, right? So it's not, and I tell people, if you start recovering memories from trauma that you don't remember during psychedelic therapy or even any type of, psychiatric visits or psychological, explorations, always ask these questions. And I list them in my book. For example, one of the most basic ones is, does this fit my life story? Were the circumstances in my life prime for these to have happened to me, or is this something totally out of the blue? So you have to analyze your life against the memories to see how truth they are, even if at the beginning they might seem really far out. And that's what I did. So first it was a full body yes, and then it was looking at my life, looking at the consequences, doing a lot of research. I read so many books and I looked for so much information when I left this center in Costa Rica. And one of the things that encouraged me to write my own book is that it was really difficult to find good information about this. That wasn't just a scientific study or, just someone talking about the possibility, but a first person account of how this can happen and how the memories can be recovered and how a whole life of consequences because of traumatic memories you didn't remember could be really changed and transmuted into a totally different life. That was my purpose of writing the book.
So, what was the decision like when you decided to write the book? You kind of want to focus on, memories and all the things that lead from there, the disconnection, despair, all that stuff, and, coming to terms with it. What made you decide that, okay, I'm going to go 100% honest. I'm going to tell my entire story for other people to read and learn from? Like, what was that decision like, where you're like, I'm just going to put it all out there? Because like I said, you share some very personal things in this book.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because anybody that knew me up until I drank the plant medicine ayahuasca and went on my journey will say that I never communicated. I never opened up about my feelings. Nobody knew what was going on in my mind or in my heart. So something really radical had to happen in me to go from that person that was completely closed off to life and to friends and to love and to other people, from that person to an author that pretty much opened the windows of my soul and told the world, hey, come and take a look at the most difficult parts of my life, because I think there is something there that you can find valuable. And what happened, the change in me was that when I was going through my process and I went to many different retreat centers, and I pretty much lived in jungle, mountains, or retreat centers for over a year for my own exploration. And I thought I was doing it for my survival, but then I realized that I'm not that unique. This is extremely common. The fact that the brain hides trauma is extremely common. The fact that there is a lot of stigma surrounding mental health, a lot of stigma surrounding psychedelics. So I wanted to tell my story in hopes that other people that might be silently struggling with all aspects of life without having an answer can perhaps find a mirror in my story, in my book, and can explore their psyche a little bit more if they choose to do so.
Would you say that you had processed your trauma up until ayahuasca and it just revealed like, oh man, you have so much more to kind of unravel? Or would you say you haven't really thought about it much?
The answer is categorically no.
Yeah.
I had never been to a psychologist. I had never taken prescription medications. I never considered there was anything for me to heal, even though there were so many aspects of me that didn't make sense. Like I couldn't really maintain friendships. I was not interested in people, really. I couldn't connect with my own body. I couldn't express emotions. I didn't even know how love felt. Like I was completely disconnected from my body. So the incredible part about this whole journey is that the brain is a master at hiding trauma. So it's not that you remember half of the story and half of the story you didn't remember. It's that it completely shuts it down. And it's actually a scientific and biological explanation for this. When you experience trauma, especially during your childhood, when your brain is still forming, when you don't have the coping mechanisms or reasoning tools to be able to process things, the fear center in your brain takes over. And it shuts down virtually the whole activity between your rational brain and your memory center. So your brain stops storing the memories the same way that it will store regular memories. And when you try to retrieve those memories, to the brain is death. These traumatic memories create such a difficult cascade of emotions in your body and in your nervous system that the brain's primary function is survival. So it will do all it can to keep you from remembering these. And then something really interesting that I always invite people to ponder about is that it's not only that the brain hides the bad memories and then you remember your entire childhood, is that you literally don't remember chunks of your childhood, maybe months or years or your entire childhood. So in my particular case, I didn't remember my childhood before 16 years old. And I knew that, and my family knew that. But then again, we were not versed in mental health. So we talked about it a couple of times during my, 20s and 30s. And we just didn't have an explanation. Yeah, that's odd that you don't remember anything. So I actually didn't remember good or bad memories.
Sure. Would you say that, excuse me, what would you say, rather, to someone looking to do ayahuasca? What kind of mind state do they have to be in? You said you really need to be prepared to try something like a psychedelic. What suggestions would you give someone reading your book or listening to this podcast?
I have a lot of suggestions and warnings in the book. To summarize it, there are two main things. One is called set, and the other one is called setting. Set is your mindset. Where is your mind when you're going into these treatments? Are you going simply because your husband or wife is doing it or your friends are doing it? Are you going out of curiosity? Are you going freaking out and super scared? Where is your mindset? Because that will determine a lot about what you're able to process and how you process what comes up. Expectations are also a big thing. Are you going into these psychedelic therapies with expectations of digging into some particular, trauma or expecting, to open up your entire heart and come out a new person, all of a sudden? It might happen. But if that's the expectation that you have and you don't get it, you might discount the things that you do get during the treatment and not appreciate them. The second super important thing is setting. So settings in psychedelic therapies are basically involving where you are going to take the medicines, who you're taking it with, and what type of safety net is there around you. And I cannot stress enough how important this is. Most people that have difficult or, bad experiences with psychedelics is because of the setting that they were in. It was not a safe place. The people that was giving them the medicine were not really versed on how to do it. They didn't know how to respond to the different occurrences that can happen during a treatment. So highly, highly important, set and setting.
So I was looking, like I said, at your description here that he sent over. And at 17, all the stuff that happened, you moved from Venezuela and you purchased franchise restaurant. What is that like at 17 years old? How do you go about that? Like, typically we do interviews with people in the movie and television industry, and one of the things that really fascinated me about you is your story of perseverance, because you overcome and then you overcame again and then you overcame again, and just so inspiring. I'm just curious, at 17 years old, how do you go about opening a franchise?
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. I didn't have a choice in any of the times that I overcame obstacles. You go to the island and they tell you, if you really want to make it in the island, burn the boats. And the boats were burned for me. I didn't try to burn them. I had no boats. I had no plan Bs. So when I moved to the US, I was literally a kid running away from the country that had murdered my father. I really didn't have any desire to stay in Venezuela. And it was really scary to come to the US at that age. I had been working with my dad since I was about 7 years old. So, and by working, I mean actually working. I early on in my life, I realized that one of the ways my father's love could be earned was by being competent. So I put my value, instead of me as a person, I put it in the things I could produce. So being a small adult, a small entrepreneur, and a great student at school, and, doing all those things right, that, in my opinion, earned me my father's love. So I was working with him. I was working in different businesses that he had, making coffee in his coffee shops, or, in the restaurant in the city, cleaning seafood, making pasta, pumping gas in the gas station, anything and everything, right? So in a way, those were preparation for what was to come in my teenage life. So when I moved to the US, I had been in the business world for, many years by then. Still, it was really scary. I knew I wanted to get a student visa and go to my university, but my mom also came a little bit after, so I needed to get her a visa. And that's why I needed to get a business, to get an investor's visa. And I knew I wanted a franchise because they had systems. So I saw a Dairy Queen franchise in my neighborhood that always had a line out the door. It's a funny story, because there I am, a 17-year-old kid with a heavy accent, going to the owner and telling him if he will sell me his business. And he literally laughed out loud, but
sure.
He ended up meeting with us, with me and my sister, and he decided to sell to us. And my dad had left each one of us some money, in U.S. bank accounts that allow me to get started in that journey with that business. So it was difficult. I remember clearly on my first day at the job that I had 15 or 18 part-time employees. Most of them were my age, some of them were older. And I was sitting on the table and I was looking at this check and I didn't know how to write it. Like, I had never written a check in English, So it was that moment of like fear. Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? But again, I had no choice. So that was the story of the Dairy Queen. I had it for about 3-4 years. And it was an interesting part of my life. Definitely an adult stuck in a teenager's body.
Sure. Do you still go to Dairy Queen now and be like, I could run this better?
I went to a Dairy Queen, I want to say 2 years ago, for the first time in like 10 years. And I remember looking at them making the ice cream, and everything just came back, the curl, I can dip it, the blister, everything. So I can totally make many good.
I believe it. I believe it. So the process of writing a book, I'm sure, is very challenging, and one about your life even more so. What was that process like? Just like writing everything down. Was it hard cutting stuff? Like, were there stories you didn't tell in your book that you wanted to, but like it was just getting too long? Like, how did that go?
Well, my writing process is very different than what I hear most people's writing process is, because from the beginning, right, I knew I wanted to put this in writing, but I had never written anything. So doubts set in, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it one day. I'm too young to write a memoir. I probably need to wait until I'm 60 and then I'll have a story to tell, So I put that aside and I went on with my journey, and I went on to retreats, and my traumatic memories kept on coming up, and I was healing them and growing stronger and learning more and reading probably like 3-4 books a month on the subject. And then, I kept on getting like these really strong signs, if you believe in that. Like people were telling me, you got to write a book. They were telling me probably every week. And then I was reading, random stuff. And it says, if you're thinking of writing a book. And I was like, okay, so let's see what I can do with this book writing thing. Yeah. So finally, I read a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And it was like the final little bit of push that I needed to write my book. She talks about how, we have these ideas sort of floating in the matrix. And when we align with them, because either our knowledge or our resources or our, time freedom, we kind of pick up these ideas. And I felt like it was my honor to be able to be one of the people that picked up this idea that I can actually help make a difference, bringing more awareness into trauma and psychedelics. And I saw it as a privilege to be able to write my book. So as far as the writing process, I literally just said one day, tomorrow I wake up at 7, I take a cold shower, and I sit on my computer and I start writing my book. And it was really, really magical, because I actually wrote the first manuscript of 50,000 words in 12-hour days. And they were continuous. I was barely sleeping. I was barely eating. It was just flowing out of me. It will surprise me when I will be writing and I'll have tears in my eyes and I'll be like, oh, wow, I just wrote that. That's really good. I like that. So it surprised me. So it was a beautiful process. Many, many times I sat on my bed and I just took a second and I was feeling so grateful. And I just wanted to anchor that trust and that feeling of gratefulness.
That's awesome. Do you, Jason, you're on mute, but do you go back to ayahuasca? Have you done it several times since then, or was that kind of a one-time deal for you, or do you have to revisit it just to kind of, I don't know, it benefited you one time, maybe it benefited you again?
Well, in the medicine world, in the shamanic world, they say that with ayahuasca especially, the first time you drink the medicine, it does sort of like a scan of your entire body. It's a very smart medicine, and it develops a treatment plan. So some people's treatment plan might be 1 ayahuasca ceremony. Other people's might be 4. Other people's might be 100. My treatment plan has been the long one. So I started with my initial weeks in Costa Rica, and then I went on to different centers and tried different medicines, and then I went back to ayahuasca. So I have sat with the medicine of ayahuasca many, many times. It's an incredibly healing medicine for me. And I'm actually going to I haven't sat with the medicine since January 2023. So I'm actually going to go next month to Peru and Colombia to sit with ayahuasca again.
Sure. That's awesome.
Where can everybody grab the book right now?
So the book is in Audible, and I narrate it, and it's my favorite version just because there is so much feeling in there. Like the passion of the written word is definitely expressed with passion when I narrate it. And then it's also in Amazon. So it's in Amazon on paperback and Kindle. And then in next month it's going to be the hardback on my website.
Nice. I'm going to pick one up myself, the hardback for sure. What's your website? MelissaOsorio.com?
Melissa-Osorio.com.
Awesome.
What was it like to, be your own narrator for your book? Was that fun?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I really couldn't have given that privilege to anybody else because there's so many heartfelt parts. Yeah, you guys, like there's so much of vulnerability in the book that I needed to express it myself. And it actually, it took me 18 hours of recording in the studio here in San Diego. I had a fabulous sound producer. And we narrowed down to the book is about 7 hours long. And it came out really, really, really good.
That's awesome. to piggyback off of just the production aspect of it, is it hard to find people to produce like soft and hardback books? Like, or is it all done through Amazon? Like, is it hard to find like a publisher for it?
Well, I have a very good publisher that I work with. One of my goals was to really keep the rights of my writings. It's a personal story. So, I'm not talking about Harry Potter, right? Like it's different. So I didn't want my story to be owned by anybody else. So I went with a publishing route that allowed me to keep my rights. So it's sort of like a hybrid publishing. Sure. So they were amazing. They did the inner design of the book. They did the outer design and helped me upload it and, do all of that. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Where can everybody find you online? Do you have any social medias?
Yeah. So it's Melissa _Osorio _remembers. Yeah, and I have a lot of really good content on Instagram. So that's my Instagram handle. A lot of really good content on Instagram. It makes me really happy to be able to, share information in a simple way. The book is written with a lot of love because it is a kind of book that I wish I would have picked up when I was in my 20s, when I was, going down the addiction bullet, black hole and totally unhappy with my life and not finding fulfillment and not having any explanations. So it's that kind of book that is really easy to read, but it's a marriage between a memoir and a self-help book. So it's more than just my story. Every chapter has possibilities for the reader to really get in the story compared to their own lives. There is a lot of reflective questions and a lot of, ways for the reader to kind of question their own behaviors and emotions, which is the purpose of the book. It's not to push any type of therapy on people. It is to educate them a little bit about trauma and hidden memories. But more than that, it's just so they can be entertained reading a story that allows them to perhaps question their own behaviors, their own emotions that cannot explain. One of the things that we humans are really amazing at is developing an identity. And we protect that identity for dear life. And we usually develop that identity before we're 7 years old. So what happens is that you hear people as adults displaying unwanted behaviors, and the only explanation they have is that's just who I am. That's how I've always been. And that's just an identity. And that identity might be tied up to memories of trauma that you don't remember or traumatic experiences that you haven't processed. So your identity could be a different, better person if you're able to process those emotions.
Sure. Yeah. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And mental health is something that a lot of people need to learn more about. So everybody, I highly recommend checking out the book. The links to all of Melissa's stuff will be down below. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, we're great. See everybody.
Whether you're solving murders during breakfast, cracking cold cases on your commute, or playing amateur detective at bedtime, Amazon Music's got millions of podcast episodes waiting. Just download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite true crime podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.